Imagine the unimaginable. A man, known in his small town for his quiet life and unshakable kindness, dies not once, not twice, but 3 separate times. Each time, he is brought back from the brink, clutching a message so profound, so shocking, that it has the power to change the world. This is the story of Jacob Myers, a man who ventured beyond life and death and returned with a warning straight from the divine, a warning tied to the destiny of humanity itself. Jacob Myers was an unassuming figure, a devoted husband, father, and mechanic by trade. His life revolved around his family and his deep-rooted faith. Known for his willingness to help anyone in need, Jacob's moral compass guided every decision he made. For him, the world was a place of purpose, and every action, no matter how small, was a reflection of his belief in something greater. On an ordinary summer morning, Jacob kissed his wife goodbye, promising to be home by dinner. The sunlit drive to work felt routine, the radio playing soft hymns as his truck rolled along the familiar road. But as he approached a sharp curve, a sudden flash of headlights changed everything. A semi-truck, its driver distracted, veered into Jacob's lane. In a split second, there was no time to swerve, no time to react. Metal collided with metal, the deafening crunch echoing into the stillness. When paramedics arrived, the scene was devastating. Jacob's truck was mangled, barely recognizable. His body lay still, lifeless amidst the wreckage. The first responders fought desperately to revive him, but after several attempts, they declared him clinically dead. His heart had stopped. Minutes later, against all odds, a pulse returned. But Jacob's ordeal was far from over. As they rushed him to the hospital, his heart stopped again, and then again a third time, each time plunging him deeper into the unknown. Each time, medical staff brought him back, their faces etched with disbelief. What Jacob experienced during those moments of death was nothing short of extraordinary. While his body lay broken, his consciousness lifted. In his final moments on earth, as the sound of sirens faded, he felt an overwhelming peace. The pain disappeared, replaced by an uncanny stillness. He saw the light, soft and inviting, pulling him away from the chaos. But this was only the beginning. The moment Jacob's spirit left his body, he felt weightless. The world he knew dissolved into a vast expanse of light and shadow, a stark contrast between comfort and fear. At first, there was silence, deafening, infinite silence, the kind that fills the soul and demands reflection. Then, the light intensified, surrounding him in an otherworldly glow that seemed to pulse with a rhythm of its own. As he stepped forward, or what felt like stepping forward, Jacob found himself in a field unlike anything he had ever imagined. The colors were vibrant beyond comprehension, as if each blade of grass and flower was alive, singing with its own light. The air was thick with serenity, yet he could feel something else in the distance, something darker, waiting at the edges of his vision. In this surreal place, Jacob encountered beings of radiant light. They stood tall, ethereal, their forms indistinct yet overwhelmingly present. These weren't just angelic figures. They felt ancient, wise, and purposeful. Their light wasn't blinding. It was warm, like the embrace of a long-lost friend. Without words, they communicated, their presence filling him with a deep understanding that he was not alone. But not all was serene. As Jacob gazed beyond the radiant beings, he noticed shadows lingering far off, their forms twisting and restless. There was a clear divide between the peace surrounding him and the darkness encroaching from the distance. The contrast was startling, a clear line drawn between two realms, two forces vying for dominance. The closer he approached the light, the more distant the shadows became, but their presence was undeniable. And then it came a voice, not heard but felt. It was deep, resonant, and filled with a power that seemed to vibrate through Jacob's very soul. The voice called him by name, pulling him closer to the source of the light. The radiant being stepped aside, parting to reveal a figure unlike any he had seen. Though the face was obscured by brilliance, Jacob knew instinctively who it was. Every fiber of his being recognized this divine presence. It was Jesus. Jacob fell to his knees, overcome by awe and humility. The figure radiated a love so profound it melted away every fear, every worry. But there was no time for comfort. The voice, now clearer, spoke with an urgency that pierced Jacob's spirit. "You are here for a reason," Jesus said, his words echoing through the realm. "What you see and what you learn must be shared. The future depends on it." Jacob's heart, though weightless in this realm, grew heavy. He felt the gravity of the mission placed before him. The light began to swirl, drawing him closer to its center, where the truth of his purpose and the terrifying message he was destined to carry awaited. Jacob's knees trembled beneath him as he gazed into the radiance before him. The figure of Jesus stood at the heart of the light, not blinding, but commanding. His presence carried an authority so overwhelming that it stripped Jacob of every pretense, every shred of ego. Here, in this divine realm, there was no hiding, no doubt, only truth. Jacob knew he was standing in the presence of the Creator's Son. The light surrounding Jesus was unlike anything Jacob had ever seen. It pulsed and flowed, alive with warmth and love. Yet, within this peace, there was an undercurrent of urgency. This was not just a moment of comfort. It was a moment of profound purpose. "Jacob," Jesus spoke, and though his lips didn't move, the words filled the entire space, resonating deep within Jacob's soul. "You have been brought here not for yourself, but for others. What I will show you is not a gift. It is a responsibility." Jacob felt the weight of those words press down on him. He lowered his head, unable to meet the intensity of Jesus' gaze. "Why me?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "I'm just an ordinary man." "There are no ordinary men," Jesus replied, his tone both gentle and firm. "You are here because your heart is open, because your faith has guided you even when the world gave you no reason to believe. You are here because humanity stands at a crossroads, and I need you to deliver a message." As Jesus spoke, Jacob felt a stirring deep within him. Images began to flood his mind. Flashes of light and shadow, of people striving for greatness, yet teetering on the edge of destruction. He saw the small moments of kindness that held the world together and the acts of greed that threatened to tear it apart. It was as if the entire fabric of humanity's existence was being laid bare before him. "There is a battle," Jesus continued, his voice growing heavier. "Not of flesh and blood, but of spirit. Humanity has been given great tools, great minds, and great potential. But with those gifts comes the temptation to place faith in man instead of God." Jacob's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, to ask what all of this meant, but the weight of Jesus' presence held him still. "You must warn them," Jesus said, his tone now unyielding. "Warn them of the dangers of forgetting their Creator, of placing their trust in idols of steel and circuits, in the hands of those who see themselves as gods." The air around Jacob seemed to grow heavier, charged with the gravity of what was being asked of him. He didn't understand the full scope of the message yet, but he knew it was far bigger than himself. "Prepare yourself," Jesus said, stepping closer. "What you are about to see is the truth of what is to come." The light around Jacob shifted, no longer warm and inviting, but cold and stark. He found himself standing amidst a vast expanse, a void where time and space seemed irrelevant. In the distance, scenes began to form, flickering like a projection on a screen. But these weren't dreams. They were realities yet to unfold. "This is what lies ahead," Jesus said, his voice steady yet tinged with sorrow. "Humanity stands at the precipice of a new era, an era of both great hope and great peril." Jacob saw images of towering skyscrapers made of glass and steel, their heights piercing the heavens. Machines whirred and hummed, their purpose unmistakable. Humanity had created wonders that seemed to rival the power of God. But the beauty of the technology was marred by something deeper, a sense of detachment, of coldness. People no longer looked to one another. They looked only to their devices. And then a figure emerged from the visions, a man with an unmistakable presence. Elon Musk, He stood at the center of humanity's technological revolution, surrounded by innovations that promised to change the world. Neuralink implants, artificial intelligence, colonization of distant planets, all of it shone with the promise of progress. Yet, in the brilliance of it all, there was a shadow. Elon Musk, Jesus said, his tone neutral yet deliberate. He is a man of great vision, but also great danger. His mind has been gifted with ingenuity, yet it walks a fine line between creation and destruction. Jacob watched as the visions unfolded further. He saw humanity thriving in some ways, achieving feats once thought impossible, diseases cured, knowledge expanded, and worlds beyond Earth explored. Yet, in the midst of this progress, a dark undercurrent ran deep. He saw people willingly surrendering their autonomy to machines, their faith no longer placed in God, but in algorithms and artificial minds. Elon Musk's innovations will shape the future, Jesus said. But humanity must decide how to wield these tools. They are not salvation. They are not the answer. And should they be used without wisdom, they will lead to ruin. Jacob's heart ached as he saw the cost of these advancements. Families disconnected, communities fractured, and the natural world stripped bare in pursuit of technological dominance. But then Jesus showed him something else, a glimpse of what could be. In the same vision, Jacob saw humanity using these tools for good. Technology became a means of healing, of connection, and of strengthening faith rather than eroding it. Elon Musk's vision, when guided by humility and respect for God's creation, became a force for incredible good. You must warn them, Jacob, Jesus said, his tone filled with both hope and urgency. Warn them to remember their Creator in the face of creation, to wield their gifts with care, and to place faith where it belongs, not in man, but in me. The visions began to fade, but their weight remained heavy in Jacob's heart. He knew now what was being asked of him and the gravity of the task ahead. He had seen both the light and the darkness that humanity could choose, and it was up to him to guide them toward the light. Jacob stood in stunned silence, his heart heavy with the magnitude of the visions he had witnessed. As the light around him pulsed with divine energy, Jesus turned his gaze toward him, his expression a blend of love and grave concern. There was no mistaking the urgency in his voice. Elon Musk, Jesus said, the name resonating with power and purpose. He is not just a man of innovation. He is a figure whose influence will shape the trajectory of humanity's future. Jacob felt a chill run through him as Jesus spoke. In the earlier visions, Musk had appeared as both a symbol of human progress and a harbinger of its potential downfall. Jesus continued, his tone carrying a divine weight that left no room for doubt. His creations, artificial intelligence, Neuralink, and the quest to colonize the stars are tools of immense power. They hold the promise of elevating humanity, but they also carry the danger of severing humanity from its creator. These technologies are neither inherently good nor evil. They are reflections of the hearts of those who wield them. Jacob's mind raced as Jesus began to show him the spiritual implications of Musk's pursuits. He saw Neuralink devices implanted in people's brains, granting them incredible abilities to communicate, learn, and heal. Yet, alongside this progress, he saw humanity drifting further from their spiritual roots, placing their faith in technology rather than in God. Elon's vision, Jesus continued, comes from a place of great intelligence, but also great pride. Pride is the shadow that follows genius, and it blinds even the most brilliant minds to the eternal truths. If his heart remains unguarded, his creations will serve not humanity's soul, but its downfall. Jacob was shown a chilling image. Masses of people, their lives consumed by their connection to machines. Eyes devoid of emotion. They moved through a world stripped of meaning, their souls tethered to devices rather than to divine purpose. And yet, Jesus said, his voice softening, there is hope. His work, when guided by humility and reverence for my creation, can lead to extraordinary good. It can heal the sick, connect the disconnected, and explore the wonders of the universe. but only if humanity remembers its creator and does not elevate man-made tools to the status of gods. The warning was clear. Musk's innovations had the potential to unite humanity or to sever it from its soul. Jacob felt a deep weight settle on him. He realized that his task was not just to share this warning, but to awaken humanity to the spiritual consequences of its choices. "You must tell them, Jacob," Jesus concluded, his voice filled with both sorrow and hope. "The gifts I have allowed humanity to create are tools for stewardship, not for dominion. They must choose wisely, or they will lose what makes them truly human." The realm around Jacob shifted once more, and he found himself standing in the midst of a vast battlefield. It wasn't a battlefield of earthly weapons or armies, but a metaphysical plane where light and darkness clashed in an eternal struggle. The air crackled with energy, and the ground beneath him trembled as unseen forces collided. "This is the war for humanity's soul," Jesus said, his voice steady yet filled with profound urgency. "It has raged since the dawn of time, but now the stakes are higher than ever." Jacob watched in awe and terror as the forces of light, radiant and steadfast, battled against the shadowy, writhing figures of darkness. Each side seemed to embody more than physical strength. They represented the spiritual forces that shaped the world: love, faith, and hope on one side, and fear, greed, and pride on the other. At the heart of the battlefield stood a figure Jacob recognized immediately: Elon Musk. He was surrounded by the fruits of his genius: AI, neural implants, spacecraft. These creations flickered between light and shadow, their forms shifting as if caught in the tension between good and evil. "Elon's work is a fulcrum," Jesus explained. "It can tip the balance in either direction. His innovations are tools of extraordinary potential, but they can be corrupted by greed, pride, and the thirst for power." Jacob saw the forces of darkness attempting to manipulate Musk's creations, twisting AI into instruments of control, Neuralink into tools for enslavement, and space colonization into an escape from moral responsibility. Yet, he also saw the forces of light striving to use these same technologies to heal, connect, and inspire. "Humanity must choose," Jesus said, his tone firm. "Technology is not the enemy, nor is it the savior. It is a mirror, reflecting the intentions of the heart. Those who wield it must do so with wisdom, humility, and a deep respect for the Creator." The battle raged on before Jacob's eyes, the clash of light and darkness echoing in his soul. He felt the weight of the message Jesus had entrusted to him. Humanity's choices were pivotal, and Elon Musk's role in this unfolding drama was central. Jacob turned to Jesus, his voice trembling. "How can I make them see this? How can I help them understand what's at stake?" "Speak the truth," Jesus replied, his gaze piercing yet compassionate. "Do not fear their disbelief or their ridicule. The seeds you plant will take root in hearts that are ready. But they must know this: humanity's future depends not on the tools it creates, but on the choices it makes." As the battlefield began to fade, Jacob felt the gravity of his mission settle within him. He had seen the battle for humanity's soul, the stakes of Elon Musk's work, and the responsibility that rested on all of humanity to choose wisely. It was a burden, but it was also a calling, one he could not ignore. Jacob stood amidst the lingering echoes of the spiritual battlefield, the vision of light and darkness etched into his very soul. The weight of humanity's choices felt immense, yet Jesus' presence radiated an unshakable assurance, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was hope. "Jacob," Jesus said, his voice firm yet compassionate, "humanity has been gifted with free will. With it comes the power to create, to heal, and to advance. But this power also brings a great responsibility. The tools I have allowed them to build, AI, space exploration, and medical miracles, are not the problem. The danger lies in how they are used and what is placed in their stead." Jacob nodded, the images of Neuralink and artificial intelligence fresh in his mind. "But how do they choose the right path?" he asked, his voice trembling under the weight of the question. "By remembering me," Jesus said, his tone filled with divine certainty. "Faith, compassion, and moral integrity must guide their choices. Without these, even the greatest advancements will become chains rather than keys. Jesus raised his hand, and new visions unfolded before Jacob. He saw people idolizing figures like Elon Musk, holding him up as a savior of humanity. Crowds gathered, cheering as Musk unveiled new technologies, their eyes filled with awe and reverence. Yet behind the adoration, Jacob sensed a hollow emptiness, a reliance on man rather than God. The danger, Jesus continued, is not in Elon Musk or any single figure. It is in humanity's tendency to place blind trust in those who seem to hold answers. When they idolize men or machines, they lose sight of their Creator. They begin to believe that salvation lies in their own hands. Jacob watched as the scenes shifted, showing a world dominated by technology but devoid of connection. Families sat in the same room but spoke only through devices. People walked past one another, their eyes glued to screens, their hearts closed to compassion. "This is not my plan," Jesus said, his voice tinged with sorrow. Salvation does not come from machines, nor from human intellect. It comes from a connection to me, from the love they show one another, and from their willingness to serve a purpose greater than themselves. Jacob's heart ached as he saw both the potential for humanity's greatness and its vulnerability to losing its way. Jesus stepped closer, his eyes meeting Jacob's with a divine intensity. "You must remind them," Jesus said. "Remind them that technology is a tool, not a God. That figures like Elon Musk, while gifted, are not saviors. Humanity's true salvation lies in their spiritual connection to me and their willingness to walk in faith, compassion, and integrity." The weight of the message settled on Jacob's shoulders, but within it, he felt a spark of hope. Humanity could still choose the light. The light around Jacob began to shift, its warmth growing more distant, its pull less intense. He looked up at Jesus, a mixture of awe and desperation in his eyes. "Please," Jacob said, his voice breaking, "don't send me back. This place, your presence, it's everything I've ever longed for. I don't want to leave." Jesus' gaze softened, filled with an infinite understanding. "Jacob," he said, "I know the peace you feel here, but your work is not yet done. The message I have given you must be shared. Humanity needs to hear it." Tears streamed down Jacob's face as he fell to his knees. "What if they don't listen?" he asked. "What if they dismiss me, ridicule me? What if I fail?" Jesus reached out, placing a hand on Jacob's shoulder. "It is not your job to control how the message is received. Your task is to deliver it with love, truth, and courage. The rest is in my hands." The space around them seemed to hum with divine energy. Jacob felt a pull, like a tether drawing him back toward the earthly realm. He fought against it, his heart torn between the peace of heaven and the daunting mission ahead. "I'm afraid," Jacob admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "You are not alone," Jesus replied, his tone filled with reassurance. "I will be with you always, guiding you, strengthening you. Trust in me." The pull grew stronger, and Jacob felt his spirit being drawn away from the radiant light. As he began to fade from the divine realm, he caught one last glimpse of Jesus, his face radiating both love and purpose. The transition back was abrupt and jarring. Jacob's eyes snapped open, the sterile glare of hospital lights flooding his vision. His chest heaved as he gasped for air, the weight of his physical body returning with an almost unbearable heaviness. Machines beeped frantically, and medical staff surrounded him, their faces a mixture of shock and awe. "He's back," someone shouted. "We got a pulse." Jacob blinked, his mind struggling to reconcile the divine peace he had just left with the chaos of the hospital room. But amidst the noise and confusion, one truth burned brightly in his heart. He had been sent back for a reason. The mission was clear, the message was urgent, and now he had to share it with the world. The sterile hospital room felt like a prison compared to the divine warmth Jacob had experienced in the presence of Jesus. As he sat up in bed, weak but alive, the weight of his mission pressed on him like a boulder. He had been brought back for a purpose, to deliver a warning so urgent, so horrifying, that it could not be ignored. Yet, as soon as the words left his lips, he realized how monumental the task would be. Jacob first shared his experience with the nurses and doctors who had fought to save him. "I met Jesus," he said, his voice trembling but resolute. "He gave me a message about humanity's future, a warning tied to technology and people like Elon Musk." The medical staff exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of fascination and skepticism. One nurse pressed a reassuring hand to his arm. "It's common to have vivid dreams during traumatic events," she said softly. "It could be your brain's way of coping." But Jacob shook his head. "This wasn't a dream," he insisted. "I saw things I couldn't have imagined on my own. Jesus showed me a future where humanity's dependence on technology leads to devastation unless we reconnect with faith and moral integrity." As the days passed and Jacob regained his strength, he recounted his story to friends and family. The reactions were as varied as the people he spoke to. Some were deeply moved, their faith reignited by Jacob's testimony. His best friend, David, stared at him with wide eyes, tears brimming. "You're saying Elon Musk's work could destroy us?" David asked. "No," Jacob clarified. "Not destroy us by itself, but if we let it consume us, if we forget our Creator and place our faith in machines instead of God, it could lead to ruin." Others were less receptive. "Jacob, you've been through a lot," his brother said, a skeptical frown on his face. "Maybe your mind is playing tricks on you." The ridicule was harsher online. When Jacob shared his story on social media, skeptics dismissed him as a fanatic, a man chasing attention. Comments ranged from another guy claiming to meet Jesus. How original, to sounds like a bad sci-fi plot. But despite the doubt and ridicule, Jacob found pockets of hope. Strangers reached out to him, saying his story had inspired them to reevaluate their lives. Church leaders invited him to speak to their congregations. For every voice of disbelief, there was another willing to listen. Slowly, Jacob realized that his task wasn't to convince everyone. It was simply to share the truth. "The message isn't mine to control," Jacob told a reporter during an interview. "I've seen the horrifying clarity of what's at stake." Jesus warned that humanity's future hangs in the balance. Whether people listen or not is up to them. And so, Jacob continued to speak, driven by the urgency of the message he carried. He knew the road ahead would be long and filled with obstacles, but he also knew that the stakes were far too high to remain silent. Jacob stood before a crowded church, the pulpit trembling slightly under his hands. The faces in the audience ranged from eager believers to wary skeptics, but Jacob's resolve was unwavering. His mission was clear: to deliver the warning Jesus had entrusted to him and to remind humanity of the choices they faced. "This isn't just about Elon Musk," Jacob said, his voice steady. "It's about all of us. Musk's innovations, artificial intelligence, Neuralink, colonizing Mars, these are tools. Tools that can either elevate humanity or sever us from our Creator." He paused, scanning the room. "I saw the consequences of ignoring this balance. I saw a world where people placed their trust in machines instead of God, where technology became a god in itself. It was a world filled with progress but devoid of connection, faith, and meaning." The audience was silent, the weight of his words settling over them. "But it doesn't have to be that way," Jacob continued. "Jesus showed me another path, a future where we use these tools with humility, guided by compassion and a deep respect for the divine. The choice is ours. Technology isn't the enemy. It's how we choose to use it." Jacob's mission extended beyond churches and small gatherings. He dedicated his life to spreading the message, traveling across the country, speaking at schools, conferences, and community centers. He worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between those who saw technology as salvation and those who feared it as destruction. His goal was not to demonize innovation, but to encourage humanity to approach it with caution and integrity. "Progress without purpose is empty," he would often say, "and purpose without faith leads to ruin." Jacob's message began to ripple outward. People who had dismissed him at first started to reconsider, drawn by his sincerity and unwavering conviction. His warnings about idolizing figures like Musk resonated with those who had grown disillusioned by the promises of technology. But even as his words inspired many, Jacob never lost sight of the gravity of his mission. Humanity's choices will shape its destiny, he said during one of his final public talks. We stand at a crossroads. Technology can be a pathway to salvation, a tool for healing and connection. But it can also become a weapon of destruction if we let pride and greed take the lead. As Jacob looked out at the audience, he felt a deep sense of peace. The weight of the message was heavy, but he had carried it faithfully. He had fulfilled his mission, knowing that the rest was in God's hands. In his final words, he left them with a haunting reminder. The future of humanity doesn't depend on the machines we build. It depends on the hearts that guide them. Want to hear more of this? Then click on the video on the right-hand side, which is even crazier.